Hello everyone, Andrea here with I Dream of Crafting. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do these really cool no-sew quilted ornaments. You don't need to know how to sew, all you need to know is how to cut fabric, and you're cutting fabric. It's like cutting anything else. So this is really, really easy. You don't need any special tools except for fabric. And yeah, these are really great and they make awesome Christmas presents. And I'm really excited to get it done because it will be my brother and sister-in-law's first Christmas as a married couple together. So it's their first Christmas ball for their wedding. And I'm going to be using the closest I could find to their wedding colors. So I'm really excited. So let's get to the supplies. Okay, the supplies you will need for the no-sew quilted ornament. You will of course need an ornament. This is a styrofoam ball. These are the same balls we used for the puff ball ornaments. This is a 3.5 inch foam ball. You can use the green foam if you want. It doesn't matter. You just need a foam ball. Scissors. This is an optional tool. This is my rotary tool. Or my rotary cutter. This makes cutting fabric a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster, but you certainly do not need it. You can cut your fabric with just a pair of scissors. You're going to need some straight pins. Let me get one out so you can see it. These are the ones with the flat end on one side, and of course the pokey side on the other side. This is a this is a container of 750 I found at Walmart. I'll count them as I do the project, and somewhere on this screen I will put up right now how many you will need total. I'm sorry, I should have counted how many pins that you would need before starting this, but it's up here now somewhere. But you will need some straight pins. An optional but highly recommended is one of these pins with the glass bead on top, because one of your pins will show through, and so you want it to look pretty. You certainly don't have to though. You can hide the pin or just use hot glue for this step, but I just like having the pin there. You're gonna need some ribbon. This is 1/8 of an inch. Let me show you. So this will be our hanger. This will be our hanger, so you want it a bit thin. And then you will also need ribbon that is 7/8 of an inch or 1 inch. I'm going to try and use, for this specific ball, I'm going to try and use this burlap tape. It's 1 inch. I'm really hoping it works the way I think it will. But if not, I do have wider ribbon. So you're going to need a thin ribbon and you're going to need a thick ribbon, and you'll see why when we get to that part. It'll all make sense, I promise. Another optional tool, you're going to need 2 rubber bands. I use this so I can find the center of my ball on each side, on opposing sides. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to get somewhat close. And that's where this ribbon comes in, and we'll talk about that more. We'll talk about that more when we get to the step. This is how I find my center, with 2 rubber bands, but if you have another way of finding it, use that. You're also gonna need a straight edge. I like these plastic ones. I cannot find my big one for the life of me, but this one will be fine. Or you can use a metal ruler, anything with a straight edge that you can either draw on and then cut out with scissors, or I just use this as a guide for cutting directly on my fabric. With that being said, you're going to need some fabric. This is cotton fabric. These are the colors I'm going to be using. You can use as many colors as you want. I like 3 because that's how I work with it, but if you want to use 4 and just make the layers closer together, you can certainly do that. You can, once you learn the basics, you can what is it? You can mix this up any way you want once you learn the basics. It's real simple, I promise. So you're going to need fabric. These are the closest colors I could find to my brother and sister-in-law's wedding. They had a champagne color. So this color, this light tan color, is the closest I could get to champagne. And then it was pink and white. So these were the colors for their wedding. It was kind of a not an outdoor, well, kind of outdoorsy, because their cake stand was made out of wood. So I'm trying to pull in as many of the outdoor feelsy as I can. As as my sister-in-law said when they put it on, she's like, yeah, it's a real hillbilly feel. And I hate to say that, but it kind of was. It was very elegant, but still it had that kind of outdoorsy backwoods kind of feel. So it was interesting, but it was very nice. So you're gonna need some fabric, whatever fabric you want. And then you're gonna need a cutting mat. Especially if you're using a rotary cutter, you're gonna need, definitely gonna need a cutting mat. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Alright, so those are all the supplies as far as I can remember. So let's get started. Okay, everyone, so in the interest of time, I have pre-cut all my fabric. If you want to see me cutting fabric so you can get the idea, I'll leave a link somewhere on the screen in the info cards that will link back to my very first video for the 12 days of crafting, and in that one it's the puffball ornament. In that one you can see me actually cutting fabric. I go step by step on that video. Alright, so for this one, unlike the puffball where you didn't have to be as precise with your measurements, this one you have to be pretty precise. So all of these squares are 2.5 by 2.5 inches. So I'm going to make a ball that has 3 layers. If you want to do 4 layers, that's fine. You're just going to have to add 1 more stack to this, obviously. You can totally do 4. You can do as many as you want. Well, maybe not as many as you want, but you can do 4. You might be able to squeeze 5 rows in there if you really try. I like how 3 looks, and plus it's their wedding colors, so I wanted to do 1 of each. So let me get the ball here. Okay, actually, let me get the already made ball. This will be a little easier to explain now. Okay. So I'm doing, this one I did 4 layers actually. I forgot I did 4 layers for this one. This is my Iron Man ball. I wanted it to look like his arc reactor, and then, you know, red and orange and red for his suit. I digress though. For this center piece, the very center, you're going to need 4 squares. This is 4 squares in the center. Then you want to double that because you got to do the other side. So of your center color, you want 8 2x2 inch squares. 8 of them for your center color. Then for every row you go out, you need 8 to go in between and to line up. So these are lined up with this one, and then we go in between. So this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. 8, and then of course double it for the other side. So I have 16 2x2, I'm sorry, 2.5 by 2.5 pink squares, and I have 16 2.5 by 2.5 inch champagne color squares for, well, this will be my second color, so it'll actually go center, first layer, last layer. So that's how it is. So 8, 16, 16, and if you were doing a third layer, 16 again. Alright, let's get to making this ball. Alright, so the first thing I like to do with all of my strips, before I even grab the ball, the first thing I like to do is I like to prep all my squares, because it goes a little bit faster if you prep them all. You certainly don't have to, but I like to. So the first thing you want to do is you want to find your middle point, and it's real simple. You just fold the edge to the edge, and you crease the middle, and then without unfolding it, you crease it in the other way. Now at this point, if you want to iron this, you can, but I don't think it's really necessary. All you want to do is hold that center point for a little bit. just 10 seconds or so. Have your pin ready. And then when you bring it out, or when you unfold it, put a pin right in the center. And that is what you're going to do for every single one. Let me show you on, let's see, will this color be a little easier to see? Maybe not, because it's white on the back anyway. Let's try pink. Let's try pink. So we're going to fold it. And you don't even need to, I'm sorry, you don't even need to crease the whole thing. Just the center point. So if these are open on these sides, don't worry about it. You're just looking for the center part. Come here, tomato. Give me a pin. There we go. Okay. And you open it. Come on. There we go. And center. And now if it's not perfectly centered, don't get too upset about it, but you do want to try and get as close as you can. So I do all of these, 8, 16, and 16. I do all of them just so I can grab them, push them in a ball, into the ball, and do what I need to do with them to secure them. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do, and for you it'll just be a second. For me it'll be a little bit longer. Okay, I'm sorry if I cough. I've been coughing recently, last hour or so. I'm not sure why. So I do apologize in advance for any coughing. I also apologize for all this. This is the second time I'm filming this. Because the first time I got halfway done with the ornament and found out that I did it wrong. I got my measurements wrong. So we're going to try this again. Alright. So you have, I have all my pieces here. They're 2.5 by 2.5, and they all have a straight pin through the middle. So we're going to take 4 of our white ones, and it doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to try and go back through the same hole that I did the first time. Okay. So you just pull these down to a point. The first 4 are both the easiest and the hardest to do. They're the easiest because you can start anywhere on the ball and you don't have to worry about lining anything up, except for lining it up with, with itself. It's harder though, because sometimes these things don't want to line up correctly, and then when you go to put your other 2 on, you end up with spaces. But let's see if we can avoid that. Alright, so there's our first one. Flip it 180 and go back in and try and get this pin as close to this pin as you possibly can. And then line up, make sure, try and get it as even as possible on each side. So that these valleys are as close to each other, they follow each other as closely as possible. It's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. This is a handmade ornament. People don't expect perfection on a handmade ornament. They are certainly impressed by perfection on a handmade anything, but people don't expect it. Okay. Then this middle one goes right, or this one goes right in the middle. Now here, you would pull it like this, but you can see we have some overlap, or some styrofoam peeking through. So what I do is I just fold it and pin it we go. I just pin it so that you don't see it. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's okay. Go. And if it overlaps, like this is overlapping this corner, it's not a big deal because this is all going to be covered up. So you won't see these edges. Now you can just take these out and adjust them as best you can to try and get all the folds, you know, so all the folds look identical, but I'm not too worried about it because I'm going to have something right in the center, so it's going to cover most of the center anyway. So I don't worry about it too much. But if you want to get it perfect, you are more than welcome to fiddle with it as much as you want. But for me and what I'm doing, that is good enough. And I have some styrofoam poking through, but like I said, most of this is going to be covered, and the center is going to be covered by a little design thing. So, alright, so that's the first step. Now, the second step is to take your secondary color. You're going to need 8 of these. And what you want to do is you want to go 1/2 inch down. So I'm going to grab my little... You don't have to do this. You can eyeball it. I hate eyeballing because I'm horrible at it. So I do like to measure some... Oh, man. Sometimes I mark. Sometimes I don't. So 1/2 inch down. And then try and keep the valleys lined up. And this fabric is really thick, so it's really hard to get the pins through, especially when you get especially when it's on top of other fabric. It's really hard to get that through. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to flip it over. The same thing on this side. That's what that looks like now. And I'm sorry if if I get off frame. I can't do this through the camera lens. So okay, so that's 4 of them. For the next 4, we're gonna go in between, but find where it was 1/2 inch, and then just go down like another 1/4 inch or so. Yeah, about 1/4 inch. I got that pretty close, actually. So, now this pin, yep, oh, it's going to pull right through. So that's fine. You can just put this pin just right there. Put it down a little further so it has something to grab. And you can see it covers it right up. So if you do have a pin that comes out of the center, don't freak out. You can always just put the pin in the top and the folds will hide it just as well. third row, I guess. And you saw a couple pins came out, but I just pushed them right back in. Alright, so now you're going to move on to your third color. And it's the same process as what we just did before. We're going to go about a 1/2 inch down. Like I said, if you want to eyeball this, go for it. I seem to be able to eyeball 1/4 of an inch, but anything past 1/4 of an inch I kind of lose for some odd reason. So 1/2 inch just is beyond me. But I'm going to go down a 1/2 inch, do all 4, and I'm going to these first ones so that they're below the ones I just put in. I'm doing these first, and then I'll do the same thing. I'll go in between them and go down about 1/4 inch from where the pink ones began.
How still we see thee lie above thy deep and dreamless sleep. The silent stars go by, yet in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. O holy child of Bethlehem, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sins and enter in. Be born to us today. We hear the Christmas angels, the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our Lord Emmanuel.
Okay, so that is your first side done. So everything is a 1/2 inch apart from each other. And at this point, your ball should pretty much be halfway down. So here comes the tricky part to this, or at least I think it's the tricky part. What I like to do here, where did I put that? I'm going to have to pause here and try and find my rubber bands. Okay, so I have this rubber band. I don't know where the other one got to, but I can show you how to do this with one just in case you have one. Oh, maybe. There we go. Okay, so you want to line it up on one of your grooves here, and then you want to try and make it as even as possible. Oh, and look at that. Alright, and it's right over where my line is, so I got that pretty darn straight, actually. I'm impressed. Okay, so if you had a second rubber band, here is where you would put it, make an X, and put it this way, and then where they crossed would be where, where you put your pin. So if you only have one like I do, you can just mark it lightly. That's a Sharpie. I just marked it with a Sharpie. Then I'm going to flip it 180 degrees. Line it up with this as best as I can. Okay, and I guess that's it. So you take one of your pieces and you put it right where it crosses. Alright, so that's trick number 1. Trick number 2 is you want the grooves to line up. So just find a point that works for you. And this is going to work well. So you want to follow this groove all the way down and have it line up as best as you can. Don't stress too much about it, but try and get it as best you can. Then once you get that first point in, once you get this first triangle in, all you're doing is the same as you did on the other side of the ball. So you can see I have this both sides done, and you should have a gap about like this, which is why you need the thicker ribbon, so that it can cover up that seam. However, I didn't get mine completely straight, and yeah, that's not gonna cover completely. So if you can see this, you can see how this part is shifted over like this. I didn't get it completely straight, which is a problem for this ball, for this ornament, as you can tell. So the straighter you can get this, the better. There's a couple ways you can fix this. If you're better at it than I was this time, and it varies. Sometimes I get it right on, sometimes, like now, I don't get it at all. Before you start anything, you can put a strip, about 1 inch or so, a strip of your ending color. So for me, it would have been pink, and just put a strip of fabric around, around the ball this way, and then just pin it in place, and that way it'll cover up this middle part, and your ribbon will cover that up and you won't even know it's there. I have such a large gap here, it doesn't matter what I would have put here to begin with, that wouldn't have covered. So what I'm going to do is I looked in my stash and I found this really pretty pink rose one, and I'm just going to add another row to each side. Okay, everyone, so here is the ball with the extra fabric on it, and I really do like how it turned out. I think it's really pretty. And I almost closed the gap. Almost. It's a little off. I can't cover all the pins. So what I'm going to do, here's how you can fix this if you do run into this. I cut a piece of fabric just big enough to cover these pins at the widest point. And all I'm going to do is pin this in place. And I'm going to pin this in place so that when I wrap my, when I wrap my burlap around it, it covers, of course. Come around to this side. There you go. And then when you wrap your ribbon around, or in my case burlap, that'll cover. So it'll look like that. I think that's really cute. Alright guys, so that's the end of this tutorial. The only thing I would amend, as I stated in the last video, these tutorials are the perfect example of why you should not try and do a tutorial when you're sleep deprived. I wasn't wrong in telling you to put an extra piece around the outside, and this is the finished ball. I think it turned out really cute. I really, really, really like it. And you can see the center little thing I put in there. It's just a fabric flower that I found at Walmart. It comes in a pack of excuse me, it comes in a pack of 6 or 10 or 6 or 8, something like that. Only a couple bucks. I thought it was really cute. For this center fabric though, you saw that I just cut it out and just wrapped it around, and I had the frayed edges on it. Don't do that, because the edges will just continue to fray on you. What you should have done, and what I should have done, but I was sleep deprived and wasn't thinking clearly, is you want to seal these edges so you can see they're rolled over. How I did that is I cut a piece of fabric. I measured how big I needed this fabric to be to cover all the pins, and then I doubled that measurement so I had enough, and then I just hot glued the edges over so that I would get the measurement I needed. Then I laid it down, pinned it just as I showed you in the video, and then I hot glued my burlap. My burlap is not pinned, my burlap is hot glued down, and then I just put the pin through the ribbon, and there you go, you have a finished Christmas ball. So I'm sorry this tutorial is kind of a mess a little bit. I tried to do it as best as I could. This was actually really hard to film, harder than I was expecting it to be. So if you do have any questions, please just leave them down below and I will try and answer them as best as I can. But I really hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I have a few more videos coming for the 12 days of crafting, so hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.